The news hit Wrigleyville like a lightning strike. The Chicago Cubs are officially willing to shake up the roster before the August 3rd trade deadline, and one name is dominating conversations inside the club's front office, Tarik Skubal. According to reporting from Patrick Mooney of The Athletic, the Cubs aren't just keeping a distant eye on the Detroit Tigers ace. The report says there are two legitimate connections that could make this move beneficial for both the organization and the player himself. This isn't just another rumor floating around social media. It's a report with real weight because it involves long-standing relationships within baseball operations and a looming free agency situation that could shape the Cubs' competitive future for the next 5 years. To understand how significant this situation is, you have to look at the bigger picture across Major League Baseball right now. Nearly all 30 MLB clubs reportedly have Skubal at or near the top of their wish list, putting the Detroit Tigers in an incredibly powerful negotiating position as the trade deadline approaches. Meanwhile, the Chicago Cubs are quietly dealing with serious concerns in the starting rotation, with pitchers like Horton, Steele, Boyd, Taillon, and Cabrera all battling physical limitations throughout the season. Those circumstances have created a dangerous reality. A team that desperately needs another frontline arm is entering an inflated market where every general manager is prepared to pay a historic price for an elite ace. And here's the first thing that stood out to me. This isn't some cold, numbers-only business discussion based entirely on spreadsheets and market projections. Jed Hoyer and Scott Harris have a long history together dating back to their time at Wrigley Field, when Harris was beginning his career in the Cubs organization and was part of the baseball operations group that helped bring home the 2016 World Series championship. When I see a personal relationship like that resurfacing at the exact moment the Tigers must decide what to do with the most valuable player in their organization, I don't see coincidence, I see strategy. Hoyer knows exactly who's sitting across the negotiating table, and that completely changes the dynamics behind closed doors. If this trade actually gains momentum, the impact won't stop with the starting rotation. To put together a competitive offer for a pitcher of Skubal's caliber, the Cubs would almost certainly have to reshape a significant portion of their farm system. Prospects like Matt Shaw, Kevin Alcantara, Owen Ayers, and Brooks Capel immediately become potential trade chips, depending on how aggressively Detroit wants to continue building for the future. That means the consequences extend well beyond the Major League roster. This deal could reshape the organization's long-term future by sacrificing tomorrow's talent for a stronger chance to win today, a debate that divides every front office in baseball. Before I get into the numbers and the historical comparisons I've put together for you, I've got one favor to ask. If you're a diehard Cubs fan and you enjoy this kind of in-depth analysis without the clickbait or cheap gossip, make sure you hit that like button right now. That simple click helps Cubs Wrigley Report grow inside YouTube's algorithm and make sure more fans across the North Side get this kind of coverage. Now let's dive into the financial side of this potential blockbuster, because that's where things really start to get interesting. Here's the difference between a dream and a realistic possibility. Money. Tarik Skubal is represented by super agent Scott Boras, and that alone tells you any negotiation will require patience and a financial commitment far beyond what the Cubs have traditionally been willing to make. Multiple reports suggest that acquiring Skubal even through a trade before he reaches free agency would likely require the largest financial investment the Cubs have ever made in a starting pitcher. We're talking about a contract that could easily exceed $300 million in total value, considering his age, his dominant performance over the past several seasons, and just how scarce elite frontline starters have become in today's market. For an organization that has historically preferred spreading financial risk across several players instead of investing everything into one superstar, this would represent a dramatic philosophical shift. This isn't just about acquiring another player. It's a statement about what kind of franchise the Cubs want to be over the next 5 to 7 years. To put that into perspective, just look at how the Cubs have traditionally handled similar opportunities. Back in 2016, the organization built a World Series champion by combining homegrown talent with carefully targeted impact additions, a philosophy Scott Harris helped develop while working in the Cubs baseball operations department. Since then, Chicago has rarely committed this kind of money to a single starting pitcher, instead preferring lower-risk moves like acquiring Aaron Savali from Oakland, a deal that carried less financial exposure but also a lower potential reward. The difference now is that elite pitching has become both rarer and far more expensive. Teams that once waited patiently for the perfect opportunity are now being forced to make a choice. Pay today's market price or sit back and watch division rivals get stronger first. And here's something every Cubs fan on the north side needs to understand. Milwaukee, St. Louis, and Cincinnati are watching every move the Cubs make. While Chicago debates whether Skubal is worth the price, their division rivals know that even the slightest hesitation could open the door for them to gain ground in the National League Central. A pitcher of Skubal's caliber doesn't just strengthen the rotation, he changes the way every opponent views the Cubs. If Chicago pulls off this trade, the message to the rest of the division is crystal clear. The Cubs are willing to pay whatever it takes to become the team to beat. But if they back away, rival clubs could see it as proof that Chicago's competitive window still isn't fully open. Now here's my take straight up. I believe this is one of those rare situations where paying full market value is absolutely worth it, even if the price makes people uncomfortable. Pitchers like Tarik Skubal come around maybe once every 10 years, and the personal relationship between Jed Hoyer and Scott Harris is the kind of competitive advantage that money alone can't buy. At the same time, I completely understand the hesitation. Emptying out the farm system for one player is an enormous gamble, and if this trade doesn't come with a long-term contract extension already in place, the Cubs risk giving away their best prospects for what could amount to only a few months of elite pitching. In my opinion, this move only makes sense if it's immediately followed by a long-term extension. Anything less would be the worst possible outcome. Now I want to hear from Cubs Nation. If you were sitting in Jed Hoyer's chair, would you trade away your top farm system prospects to bring Tarik Skubal to Wrigley Field, knowing it would likely require a record-setting financial commitment? Or would you rather protect the organization's future and wait for another championship window? Drop your thoughts in the comments, join the conversation with the rest of the North Side faithful, and stay locked in here on Cubs Wrigley Report, because the trade deadline is right around the corner, and this story is far from over.